After all, now I use my secret weapon. As I was saying, Buster, this planet ain't big enough for the two of us, so off you go. And now, this planet is hereby claimed for the Earth in the name of Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century. It'll be a big deal.
You're listening to the Corbett Report.
From the dawn of the atomic age until the fall of the Soviet Union, the specter of nuclear apocalypse hung over the world. Families prepared fallout shelters. Children were trained to run, duck, and cover. The Dr. Strangeloves of the Rand Corporation talked about winnable nuclear wars, and the public was taught about the doctrine of mutually assured destruction. But that was the Cold War, a relic of a bygone age. Or so we thought.
As tensions between Russia and the West mount, NATO is changing its posture, showing off its capabilities in maneuvers like this recent amphibious assault exercise in Sweden, involving American forces. And the U.S. is also planning to station weapons, including tanks and fighting vehicles, in Eastern European NATO member countries for the first time since the end of the Cold War.
This year, our nuclear forces will receive more than 40 intercontinental ballistic missiles capable of penetrating all existing missile defenses, even the most advanced.
The two massive B-2s soared 6,500 miles from Missouri to drop dummy weapons on a bombing range west of South Korea and less than 50 miles from the North Korean border, and then flew back to the U.S. It was the first time the U.S. military has confirmed a B-2 practice mission, but the message was clear. The B-2 is capable of dropping 16 nuclear bombs, each on a different target.
Obama brands his system the stronger, smarter, and swifter version of Ronald Reagan's initial Star Wars program. Under the plan, the U.S. attacks Russia with nuclear weapons, while NATO missile defense in Eastern Europe mops up any attempted response.
As is only becoming apparent now in the light of recent tensions between NATO and Russia, neither the US nor Russia ever had any genuine intention of abandoning their nuclear capability. In fact, unbeknownst to most of the public, the US took a bold new step in 2001 when a nuclear posture review report, approved by the Senate in 2002, affirmed an offensive, first-strike nuclear capability as a central pillar of US defense. Since that time, it has become obvious that one of the major targets of this nuclear posture is Russia, but it is by no means the only one.
The targeting of China and Russia dates back to the Cold War era, and in that regard, there hasn't been any major shift. There's maybe a change in the diplomatic environment, but in effect today, U.S. decision makers are contemplating the use of nuclear weapons against Russia. It's been stated quite explicitly. If that were to occur, we're in a World War III scenario. In fact, we may even be in a terminal war situation because Russia and the United States have enough weapons to blow up the Earth several times. But what I think has to be emphasized is that as a result of the 2001 Nuclear Posture Review, the United States has defined a new doctrine whereby they can use nuclear weapons against non-nuclear states, particularly targeting countries like Iraq. It was stated in 2003 by Rumsfeld, Iraq, Syria, Libya, and so on. And if we look at the history of these so-called tactical nuclear weapons, so-called mini-nukes, small nuclear weapons, which are similar to the thermonuclear bombs with a lower explosive capacity. But if you look at the statements of US policymakers, they present these mini-nukes in a sense as peacemaking bombs. harmless to the surrounding civilian population, and they justify their use in the conventional war theater. And this was actually approved by the Senate in 2002, giving the United States military the green light to use nuclear weapons with an explosive capacity varying between 1/3 and 6 times a Hiroshima bomb in the conventional war theater without the green light of the commander-in-chief, namely the President of the United States.
The supposed threat from Russian and North Korean forces are used to justify the maintenance of the conventional thermonuclear arsenal. The so-called Iranian threat is being used to justify the development and maintenance of the tactical nuclear arsenal. But these are not the real reasons behind this intensification in nuclear panic. The real motivation, quite predictably, goes toward the real goal of these projects: the privatization of nuclear war for geopolitical dominance and financial gain. This can be traced back to a meeting that took place in August 2003 in the wake of the new U.S. Nuclear Posture Review. As described in Michel Chossudovsky's book, Towards a World War III Scenario, the meeting, convened by the Pentagon at the Strategic Command Headquarters at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, brought together over 150 military contractors and scientists to discuss the development of a new, more politically viable nuclear technology, the so-called bunker busters and mini-nukes of the modern era.
In a cruel irony, the participants in this secret meeting, which excluded members of Congress, arrived on the anniversary of Hiroshima and departed on the anniversary of the attack on Nagasaki. The Hiroshima Day 2003 meetings had set the stage for the privatization of nuclear war.
Perhaps inevitably, this new era of privatized nuclear war is based on a convenient political fiction. The distinction between the thermonuclear warheads of the Cold War era and the so-called mini-nukes and bunker busters of our own era is an easily demonstrable lie, designed to make the first strike use of nuclear weapons politically acceptable. As the Union of Concerned Scientists demonstrated as far back as 2005, nuclear bunker busters like the B-6111 could still cause widespread radioactive fallout that, in the Middle East theater, would result in hundreds of thousands of deaths.
Those tactical nuclear weapons are fully deployed. I should say that they are also deployed by several non-nuclear states, which are members of NATO, and I'm talking about Belgium, Holland, Germany, Italy, and Turkey, 5 non-nuclear states. And they are deployed against targets in the Middle East. There's nothing which actually excludes their use in the conventional war theater, because the decision-making can take place at a much lower level. And not to say that it will take place at a lower level, let's say the regional commander, US CENTCOM, for instance. But we're at a stage where military planners believe in their own propaganda. They have, first of all, instructed scientists to say that this new generation of nuclear weapons are harmless to the surrounding civilian population because the explosion is underground, referring to the fact that these are bunker buster bombs and there's no danger that people surrounding the bomb explosion will actually be affected. Of course, that's a big lie. But at the same time, that narrative is entered into the military manuals. So we can't, we're no longer within the realm of Cold War doctrine, which was based on, on the concept of MAD, mutual assured destruction. We are in a mad world, but it's not the mad of the Cold War era. Okay, and what is contemplated when nuclear weapons are envisaged against targets in the Middle East is the fact that, first of all, these countries have no countervailing potential. They're sitting ducks. They can be bombed. So let's go ahead and do it. And we do it on humanitarian grounds. It's responsibility to protect.
Once again, the world is being whipped up into a nuclear panic as a result of a parade of boogeymen.
But you don't think this is going to happen? You think ultimately this is not what's going to happen?
Not at all.
This threat serves to further the global military agenda of the NATO alliance, even as it lines the pockets of the contractors who have been entrusted with the development of the latest nuclear technologies. And this entire agenda is being overseen by a political, military, and financial class who themselves present the greatest threat to the future of humanity.
I suspect that if a tactical nuclear weapon were to be used, it would not be publicized. It would be passed off as a conventional weapon. And this is why we don't really have much information on the use of these weapons. I'm sure, of course, that the Russians are fully aware, but it's very difficult to predict what would happen if one of these tactical nuclear weapons were used, and if it subsequently became official that they had been used. I think that what is at stake is a broader process of military escalation in the Middle East. And essentially, that military escalation also involves targeting Iran. And with regard to the targeting of Iran, there are certainly plans of actively deploying tactical nuclear weapons directed at Iran. And it's been stated on time and again that these would disable Iran's nuclear facilities with bunker buster bombs. So we're in a situation where we use nuclear weapons, whether they're Israeli or from the NATO US arsenal, to disable a non-existing nuclear weapons program using a nuclear weapon. Okay, that's where you see how mad these people are. But if that were to occur, I think we are in a World War III scenario. Similarly, for more than 50 years, the United States has been threatening North Korea with a nuclear attack, and very openly. Okay, and very openly. And again, they will say, well, we need to bomb the hell out of them so that we ensure that they don't develop nuclear weapons. Ironically, if they bomb North Korea, in effect, they also bomb the entire peninsula because, Pyongyang is what? Something like 50 kilometers less than 50 kilometers from the South Korean border. Like going from Manhattan to New Jersey. And so, again, military planners are not people who are going to reflect on the geopolitical implications, the broad geopolitical implications of their actions. So for people who say that this is an impossibility, that it cannot happen, I think they have to revise their understanding. And I think that what we have to do is to ensure that these people who are presenting a nuclear weapons ideology based on preemptive warfare, to ensure that these people are moved out of office, because they're dangerous not only to humanity, they're also dangerous to the United States and people in the United States, because they are acting on their behalf ultimately.
The lies of this nuclear era, like the lies of the last, need to be resisted at every level. Because, as many observers have pointed out over the years, the consequences of nuclear conflict are as inescapable as they are irreversible.
I don't want perpetual war, and that's what we've had for the last 15 years, is war without end.
I think the American public is coming more and more to where I am, and that those people like Hillary Clinton, who she fought her own war, Hillary's war, people are going to find that, and I think that's what scares the Democrats the most, is that in a general election, were I to run, there's going to be a lot of independents and even some Democrats who say, you know what, we are tired of war. We're worried that Hillary Clinton will get us involved in another Middle Eastern war because she's so gung-ho. If you want to see a transformational election in our country, let the Democrats put forward a war hawk like Hillary Clinton, and you'll see a transformation like you've never seen.